You ever get that feeling, the nagging uncertainty about your career?
Oh, definitely.
Maybe feeling a bit stuck or like the world's just changing so fast around you. I think, we've all been there.
Yeah.
And that traditional idea, work for decades, wait patiently for retirement. It honestly feels a bit, well, outdated now.
It really does. From a different time.
So, for this deep dive, our mission is really to explore how and why people are choosing to step off that path. Maybe it's a temporary career break, maybe it's aiming for early retirement altogether.
Hmm.
We're going to dive into some fascinating personal stories and also the practical financial side of things. We're pulling from sources that look at the big picture shifts, but also those really intimate personal journeys.
And it's important to say this isn't just some fleeting trend, is it?
Yeah.
What we're really seeing is a conscious reevaluation. People thinking hard about their relationship with work, with life itself.
A fundamental shift, you mean?
Exactly. Shift in priorities for a lot of people. They're seeking something more than just the conventional career ladder.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's unpack this then. We're seeing this fascinating shift, especially, it seems, among younger generations. What are the big drivers our sources point to? Why are people looking for an exit?
Well, it seems to be a potent mix, really. It's partly economic realities, but also this deeper search for purpose.
Okay.
Take Singapore, for example. The average retirement age is, 62? But we're hearing more and more about millennials aiming for their 40s, or even, before they hit 35.
Wow, really? That young?
Yeah, and the point is, it isn't solely about the money. It's about wanting control, finding meaning in what they do.
That desire for control. That seems key, doesn't it? And you might be feeling this too, listening in that persistent sense of financial insecurity.
Right.
The data backs this up. High inflation, sort of sluggish growth. These are major drivers.
Right.
There was an Institute of Policy Studies survey, the IPS survey.
So that.
It found like 34% of people worried about finances. And get this, 40% of those aged 21 to 29 were highly concerned about rising costs.
And if you connect that dot to the bigger picture, it really highlights something crucial. For many, achieving financial independence is just becoming the top goal, sometimes even pushing aside traditional milestones like marriage or buying a home.
Especially when prices are just soaring.
Exactly. And it does make you wonder, doesn't it? What's the long-term societal impact if these trends keep reshaping our life goals?
That's a really interesting question about shifting priorities. But it's not just the economics, is it? There's also this strong undercurrent of disillusionment, just being unhappy with conventional jobs.
Yeah, that comes through loud and clear.
Gallup reported that in the U.S., only like 29% of millennials feel engaged at work, and 55% feel disengaged. That's higher than any other generation.
Wow, 55%.
And Singapore isn't far behind. One study showed it having the sixth lowest employee engagement rate globally.
Which suggests that for a lot of people, work has just become, well, an exchange, time for money, rather than what it maybe ideally should be, a calling, from the Latin vocare.
A calling, right.
So a career break, or even thinking about early retirement, it offers a way out, a path to escape those golden handcuffs.
Yes, the golden handcuffs. High pay, but maybe not fulfilling.
Precisely. It's a chance to pursue things that actually resonate, It's about more than just the paycheck. It's about finding that fulfillment.
And it seems like this disillusionment plus the economic pressures is directly feeding movements like FIRE, financial independence, retire early. This is where people are actively trying to engineer their own escape route, isn't it? Our sources show the core idea isn't just saving, it's hitting a specific financial point.
Yeah, there's a target.
Adherents often aim to save like 70% or even more of their income. The holy grail goal is saving 25 times their annual expenses.
Right, the 25X rule.
Which then allows for that 4% annual withdrawal rate, giving them the freedom to just step away.
And that's the key insight, isn't it? It's not just a random number. It's a formula, a way to reclaim your time, your choices. But it's definitely not one size fits all.
No. How so?
Well, you have the extreme FIRE followers, people who cut out almost all the frills. Forget dining out, forget the fancy coffees.
Really hardcore frugality.
Exactly. But then you have more moderate folks. They're just looking for enough savings to sustain their lifestyle without being chained to a 9 to 6,
Okay, different flavors of FIRE.
But the common thread is always meticulous planning. Extreme frugality if needed, yeah, but also sensible investing. Takes discipline.
So what does this actually mean for someone making that leap? We looked into a really fascinating story from Christopher Howe. He left a stable, high-paying job for a career break.
Christopher's story, yes.
And he really emphasizes for him it wasn't some risky gamble. It was a decision backed by years of careful financial planning. That difference between just saving money versus building a real financial and emotional buffer seems crucial.
Absolutely crucial. Christopher's experience highlights that his security wasn't about locking money away and, say, long-term products he couldn't touch. It was about flexibility.
What?
Yeah, being able to pivot his money for short-term needs or changes. That's what allowed him to keep his lifestyle going and confidently chase that early retirement goal. It's about building resilience right into your plan.
That's a powerful idea, resilience. So for someone like Christopher, what did that look like in practice? What were the concrete steps he took to build that buffer?
Well, for short-term worries like, potential layoffs,
Yeah.
he really stressed the emergency fund, a safety net covering, say, 6 to 12 months of expenses.
The classic emergency fund.
Exactly. He even mentioned that for younger folks, maybe in their 20s with fewer commitments, maybe 3 months could be enough to start. But beyond that, he made a pretty significant shift in his investments.
Oh, what did he do?
He allocated about 25 to 30% of his portfolio to cash.
Cash, really? That much?
Yeah. It seems counterintuitive maybe, but it drastically lowered the volatility. It gave him a cushion so he could draw down funds during, say, a bear market without messing up his long-term goals.
Oh, okay. So it reduces the need to sell stocks when they're down.
Precisely. And his advice is pretty clear. Automate your savings, make it consistent. That commitment shouldn't really waver, even if your income fluctuates a bit.
It sounds like he really prioritized flexibility and just peace of mind. He also thought long-term, didn't he? Preparing for career shifts, industry changes, even he joked about a boss from hell.
Yes. We've all imagined that scenario.
He basically asserts that having that strong financial safety net built through really personalized planning, it gives you the option to, quote, confidently walk away from the bullshit, even without the next job lined up. That's quite a statement.
It is strong, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the empowerment that good financial planning can give you, which, brings up an important point about trust in financial advice.
Good point.
Christopher admitted he was pretty skeptical of advisors who seemed more focused on sales commissions. His unpopular opinion is that you have to be in the driver's seat of your own finances.
Because nobody cares more than you do.
Exactly. Nobody cares about your personal finance more than you. Finding an advisor who genuinely aligns with your values, who focuses on a long-term relationship, that's key to building a plan that actually serves your goals, not just theirs.
So the takeaway for listeners feeling maybe held back by financial fears, Christopher offers these clear, actionable steps. Build that 6-12-month emergency fund. Automate your savings and investments. And seek out trustworthy, customized advice.
Right. Tangible ways to take control, create that optionality he talked about.
Okay, but career breaks, they aren't just about the money, are they? They're often profoundly about finding balance, maybe a deeper sense of purpose.
Absolutely.
Which brings us nicely to Melissa Wu's story. She was an executive director at OCBC Bank, described herself as overly career-driven for more than a decade. Very entrenched in her work, she said.
Right. Melissa's story offers a really different but equally important perspective on taking an intentional pause.
Initially, she found the whole idea of a break quite daunting, like she was giving up her responsibilities.
Understandable in a high-powered role.
Yeah, she took 2 unpaid breaks, each about 3 months long, one in 2023, one in 2024. And the main reason? To support her daughters during their PSLE exams.
The primary school leaving examinations, yeah. A really high-stakes time for families in Singapore.
And you might think, okay, 3 months, is that really enough time? But Melissa describes just profound changes. She wanted to, quote, imprint a core memory on her daughters, teach them about managing stress, regulating their schedules. It meant things like longer meal times, just being 100% there for them. And that's such a powerful shift, isn't it? Choosing a mother-daughter church retreat over what she called a super heavy assignment, something she admitted she would have skipped before.
It really underscores how these breaks can completely recalibrate what you value, what truly matters, things that get lost in the day-to-day.
Definitely. And beyond her family, Melissa also used the time to reset herself. She tried new things like bar exercise, deepened her spiritual side, volunteered more.
It wasn't just downtime, it was active redirection.
Exactly. She even took her aging parents on their first trip to Japan, focusing entirely on them. It just highlights that these breaks aren't just time off. They're about intentionally redirecting your focus, your energy, towards parts of life that really enrich you.
Often the parts that get neglected in the usual grind, yeah.
Now, it's easy to imagine that for many people listening, maybe the biggest hurdle isn't just the money, but, how will my boss react? How will my company see this?
That's a huge barrier for many, yes.
Melissa's situation is quite interesting here. Her company, OCBC, actually has a policy. Employees with over 5 years of service can take up to 2 3-month unpaid career breaks.
Oh, wow. That's quite progressive.
And she said there was no stigma attached. Other colleagues had done it. Her supervisors were apparently open to shifting projects around.
See, that kind of organizational support is absolutely critical for this to work in a corporate setting. And Melissa did her part too. She told her team and bosses well in advance.
Planning ahead.
Right. Which she said helped to set up the whole idea for success. She also stressed how important the trust and support from her immediate team was. Her colleagues stepped up, they shouldered the load. It really takes a village, or at least a supportive team.
It really does. And here's maybe the most interesting part in Melissa's story, a bit ironic perhaps. By deliberately shifting her focus away from work, she actually discovered the very skill her bosses had apparently been gently nudging her to develop all along: balance.
Interesting. So the break taught her what the job couldn't.
Seems like it. She learned to set boundaries during her time off, even if it meant slower email replies. She realized you must go with the right mind frame. As she put it, you cannot focus on one thing. You have to learn how to balance your mind and focus on what is correct, building up a routine that works for you, something that is sustainable.
That's such a key insight. Sustainability. Both Christopher's and Melissa's experiences, though different, really underline this core idea of intentionality, don't they?
Intentionality, right.
For Christopher, it was about financial foresight, creating freedom. For Melissa, it was about consciously recalibrating her priorities, finding that sustainable balance. They both show how a career break, whether it's short or leads to something longer like early retirement, can be this incredibly powerful tool for personal growth.
That's a great way to put it, a tool for growth. But while pursuing financial independence or taking breaks can be liberating, our sources do warn about potential downsides, right? Especially if taken to extremes.
Yes, absolutely. The FIRE subreddits, for instance, they have cautionary tales.
Mm-hmm.
People who hit their financial independence number, but then they still worry constantly about money. Or they become really stingy. Or they just find no real satisfaction in the wealth they've accumulated.
So they achieve the goal, but miss the point somehow.
Exactly, which raises that important question. When frugality becomes like all-consuming, so totalizing, does it actually diminish the joy in life? Does it defeat the purpose? The research highlights examples, maybe it's an extravagant wedding, maybe it's just a pumpkin spice latte with a friend, or taking an extended vacation, things that might not make strict financial sense in that extreme FIRE view.
But they enrich life in other ways.
Deeply enriching, creating memories, connections, things that last a lifetime. It's about finding value beyond just the numbers on a spreadsheet.
It does make you think of Aristotle's golden mean, that ancient idea that virtue and maybe happiness too lies in finding that balance, avoiding the extremes.
That's a perfect analogy. Our sources suggest the virtuous use of money involves balancing that impulse to consume with sensible frugality, and crucially, balancing being miserly with being generous.
Finding that sweet spot.
Exactly, where financial planning enables a richer, fuller life, not one that's deprived of meaningful experiences just to hit a number.
So wrapping up, whether it's through that disciplined FIRE approach or a more temporary career break like Melissa's, it seems many people are finding new strategic ways to live, prioritizing purpose, family, well-being, moving away from those traditional career tracks.
It's ultimately about gaining control, isn't it? And living a life that feels more aligned with your actual values.
And let's not forget Christopher's really practical steps for financial confidence. Build that emergency fund, 6-12 months. Automate your savings and investments. Seek trustworthy, customized advice.
Solid foundations for anyone thinking about making an intentional pause or shift.
And from Melissa, that powerful reminder to start with yourself. Make self-care non-negotiable. It's really a necessity, isn't it? Not some luxury.
Absolutely. These intentional pauses, whether they're short breaks or lead to early retirement, they're about crafting a sustainable way of living that truly works for you.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you reflect on your own journey, what's one area, maybe personal, financial, professional, that feels a bit out of balance right now?
Mm.
And what small intentional step could you maybe take this week to start shifting towards your own golden mean?